Okay, hello again. I'm Megan Metz. I was one of the note takers for some of these breakout sessions. On day one, breakout session 1, I sat in and got to listen to the session titled Northern Perspective, Search and Recovery of Missing Children. The presenter was Jonasi Iqaluit. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And he is the project manager for the Iqaluit project. He's very passionate about the work that he does for his community, and he is a man of many hats. He wears many hats in this role. The Iqaluit project, it translates to Let's Find Them. And part of this work includes researching TB sanatoriums that Inuit had been sent to. He shared that 4,500 Inuit were sent to these sanatoriums, and nearly 1,000 of them did not return home. People would be taken from their communities and sent away through ships, trains, buses, and planes. Jonasi's job includes researching and locating the graves and burial sites of those who were missing and did not return home. The use of e-numbers is common for gathering information about patients, their families, and what TB sanatoriums or Indian residential schools they had been sent to, as well as information about any grave plot sites that may be found in different cemeteries. Unmarked graves have been found in places such as Hamilton and St. Albert. And once graves are located, Jonasi helps contact and connect family members with this information and help actually bring them to physically visit these sites. Healing trips were organized for TB survivors to visit former TB sanitarium locations and cemeteries. Healing circles took place on these trips, and youth were invited to learn and witness. These trips were made possible with the support of an organization called See Change, and the impacts of these healing trips have proven to be positive and have helped survivors find closure. One healing trip has taken place so far, and he hopes to continue to be able to host these trips for other regions. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Benjamin. I was the facilitator for Day 1, Session 2, titled Explore Use and Application of the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, or NAGPRA. The talk was put on by Megan Gershen and Brennan Manokisik, sorry if I butchered that, and their organization Manitoba Kiiwetinoong Okimaganak. I thought this session was really fitting for Kim's work because it looks at a legal framework for doing this, and Kim's making recommendations for that for us. So the number one thing that we heard in this session was a lack of protections for the graves and for these sites, and that there's no matter of first principle to support the urgent, effective, and conclusive protections for these sites. MKO looked to NAGPRA for inspiration and consideration because it was a piece of legislation drafted in the United States for repatriating ancestors and their belongings. One of the reasons that NAGPRA is a good starting point is because it actually requires federally funded agencies to comply with the repatriation process. And it outlines what action is required to walk through this process in working with Indigenous communities. There was an acknowledgement that NAGPRA itself is flawed, and that it only applies to federal funded institutions when we know that there were a number of institutions that may not receive this funding but still retain ancestors and their belongings. The second big thing that we heard was that Canada holds a continuing duty and an obligation to the children, and that this is due to the fact that the children perished and are now located in these unmarked graves as a direct result of Canada's exercise of Section 91, subsection 24 of the British North America Act, and this was done through federal orders in council and amendments to the Indian Act that established and operated the Indian residential school system. In the Q&A session, we heard concerns about jurisdiction and the need for consequences when organizations such as governments or churches fail to comply with laws like NAGPRA. But we also heard about the need to look beyond residential school sites, to look at the TB sanatoriums, hospitals, and within the foster care system. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name's Carmelo. Yesterday, I sat in the No History Where to Start search for records. In this session, they shared with us some of the documents that came from these schools. The kids and staff had separate menus, but the schools wrote down the kids' menus, but they never wrote down how they prepared the food. They never wrote that they were serving cold, mushy porridge. It is acknowledged that historical documents are important, however, they can be problematic and misleading. These documents were created by government officials, religious organizations, and school administrators. They're motivated to disguise or minimize the true stories of residential schools. It is important that all historical documents are read critically and the experience and memories of the survivors are prioritized.
I did some note taking for session 1 today, National Advisory Committee panel working together in the search and recovery of residential schools missing children. So there was Dr. Rebecca Jacks, Lillian Elias, and Andrew Martindale. So what really stood out is I noticed that they're about Indigenous-led and guided. They're led by Indigenous people and guided by survivors. They are there to assist in finding missing children and to support and care the survivors that may need the support. They have complex and specialized tasks that they want to make. I'm just really nervous right now. They have complex and specialized tasks that they want to make sure to do well, and it will take a lot of time, so it will take years or even decades. And one of the things that they mentioned was the funding, like the anxiety of like having funding, and because it takes a long time. Successful identification from DNA samples. Hello? Oh. Some of them are done by cutting off part of a bone or bones, and how some people are told, one of the discussions was like how some people are told by elders that they should be left as they are for them to rest in peace, and how this topic brought up when consensus is the hardest part when it comes to this, because some people want to get legal justice. Like there are people who wants to get legal justice and want to successfully identify who these people are, and there are others who are you should leave them there as they are so that they can rest in peace. And that's when it came in for consensus and how it may be very complex. And there were questions on if they would be able to do DNA samples on the infants that were burnt and born there, and how they may not be able to do those DNA samples on them, because that's when it's like pretty much gone now. And that's what I got from the National Advisory Committee.
Okay, so today, day 2 for Breakout Session 2, I got to sit in on the Health and Wellness Exercises workshop. Our presenters were Jean and Roy Erasmus. Excuse me. They're counseling therapists who currently reside in Yellowknife Northwest Territories. They're also support workers here for this event. They work with Indian residential school survivors and communities traveling around the north, hosting workshops and on-the-land programming. This workshop today was focused on self-regulation, and as a group we explored what it means to feel dysregulated and some of the positive and negative ways we've learned to cope with these feelings. We learned about our window of tolerance and how being hyper-aroused or hypo-aroused can result in different mental and physical responses. And we're also taught different ways we can learn how to self-regulate. Through breathing, different breathing exercises such as box breathing, through mindfulness, checking in with yourself, what are 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you are grateful for. If you find yourself in moments of anxiety or stress, we learned different ways we can meditate and quiet our mind, and we also learned about the power of laughter when we come together. We did different breathing exercises, and we also got to have a little bit of fun too, and shake and jump around and be a little bit silly. It was a really a workshop that I needed today too. So thank you, Jean and Roy.
The breakout session that I attended today was the NTRC Sharing Circle. Today someone shared with us what was said to them, which was go further your education and get a job. But they have separation anxiety as a result of residential schools. They always wanted to go to college or university to further their education, but they couldn't. They can't leave their community again. They can't leave their family. They don't want to be away from them because the federal government scarred them. They were scared and now have separation anxiety.
Thanks. On behalf of all of the youth, because we are the Youth Advisory Council, we'd like to thank you all for welcoming us to your territory. It was such a warm feeling, even though we're in a very cold environment. And we just want to say that as the youth, we are here for you. You don't have to carry this burden alone. And we see you, we believe you, and we love you. Thanks.